Good day, I'm Jaco Deacon and I'm the Deputy CEO of FEDSAS. Welcome to this 2-year course on marketing. Hopefully you'll find this useful, number one, and number two, enriching for you in your personal capacity. We're very excited about this partnership with BizSkills and we believe that this will add huge value to our school community. Unfortunately, I cannot be here and therefore the recording today. There's two important things to remember before we start with this course. Number one, it's your responsibility, your first responsibility to make sure that your school is a member of FEDSAS. If they're not yet a member, please go to our website today, www.fedsas.org.za, and register your school. The second important thing is to understand the school environment. And therefore, we're going to switch over to Paul Collins, where he will give us a brief explanation on the nature and the scope of a public school. Enjoy.
There are a number of important issues we need to discuss before we can understand what our role as school governors are. First of all, it is important for school governing body members to understand that there are two generally accepted principles with regard to governors which governors must exercise. The first one is due and reasonable care, skill, and diligence in the exercising of their functions. And the second one is that there is an obligation on a school governor to always act in the best interests of the school and particularly the learners of the school. Now, as far as care and diligence is concerned, that is up to you. But as far as the skill is concerned, skill requires an amount of knowledge, and we as FEDSAS are there to provide that knowledge to you and also to assist you in developing the skills to function properly as a school governor. The next important issue that I need to emphasize is that you will hear and read that many people refer to our schools in South Africa as state schools. They are certainly not state schools. We only have public schools in South Africa. That's apart from the independent schools. But the majority of the schools in South Africa are public schools, and that is where you have been elected to serve as a school governor. It is important to understand the difference between a state school and a public school. Briefly, it simply means that in the case of a state school, the school belongs to the state. In the case of a public school, it is exactly what the name says. It actually belongs to the public. The school belongs to the public, the community in which the school is situated. That brings us to the next important issue, and that is juristic personality. Every school, in terms of the Schools Act, is clothed with juristic personality. And that means it is an entity separate from all other entities. It means that this juristic person belongs to itself. It doesn't belong to the Department of Education. It doesn't belong to the learners. It doesn't belong to the parents. It belongs to itself. And therefore, it requires a governance structure, such as the school governing body, to govern the school. And that's why your task as a school governor is so important. Let's illustrate it graphically. If we imagine the Department of Education as a building, and the school, on the other hand, also as a building, between these two buildings is a huge gorge, which is impassable. You cannot cross that gorge. You cannot cross from the Department of Education to the school. If you want to do so, you require a bridge. And the law creates bridges, in terms of which politicians, education officials can cross that gorge to get to the school. If there is no bridge, if there is no law allowing these people to come into the school, they cannot do so. So it's important for you as school governor to also understand and know when it is possible for a departmental official, or anybody for that matter, to come in to your sphere of competence as school governor or as a school. But equally, the same applies to the governing body. A governing body, democratically elected, but it is a statutory body. It's a statutory body, as we call it, because it's created by a statute, the South African Schools Act in this particular instance. You've been elected onto that statutory body to govern this heuristic person called the school. That principle, the principle of only being able to do what the law requires or authorizes you to do, we call the principle of legality.
Now you know and understand the principle of legality. And that's a very important principle to understand. And you also heard that the school is governed by a school governing body. Now the governing body is elected in terms of Section 23 of the Schools Act and consists out of a number of important role players. The next slide will give you a picture of the composition of a governing body. You'll have your school principal, you'll have the educators, the non-educators, parents, and in the instance of a high school, also some learners. But note, all of them will have a different hat. But if I'm elected as a parent, I cannot wear the hat as a parent in a governing body meeting. Section 16.2 of the Schools Act is clear. The moment I'm elected on the governing body, I'm no longer a parent. I must take off my hat as a parent. And that's what you'll see in the next slide. The moment we enter the governing body, we take our hats off as teachers, educators, principal, non-educators, parents, and we all wear the same hat. We are governors, and we must act in the best interest of the school. Now, what's the big difference between governance on the one side and management on the other side? In principle, there are two sides of the same coin. In a school environment, the governing body is responsible for the governance of the school. They must develop a number of policy documents to guide the school management in the execution of these responsibilities. Your school principal will fulfill a very important role as a link between the governing body, though he is a member of the governing body, and the management of the school. In layman's terms, the school is governed by the governing body, and the professional management is the duty of the school principal. The next slide will give you an indication of the reporting responsibility of the school principal. On all matters relating to what's happening inside the classroom, the principal must report directly to the Department of Education. And all matters outside the classroom, he will report directly back to the school governing body. The next slide will give you an idea of the scope of the governance and management within a school. A governing body of a school can be compared to the board of directors of a company. The board of directors aren't normally at the school during school hours. I'm a chairperson of a governing body, but I'm not at the school to execute the tasks. That's the responsibility of the CEO of the company. And the CEO at the school is your school principal. He is responsible for everything in the school. Finances, marketing, whatever is delegated to him, and he must execute. Obviously, he cannot do it alone, so you'll have different committees within the school to assist him to fulfill that function. For example, a marketing committee, or a communication committee, or hostel committee, financial committee, and so forth. And eventually, that will filter down to your school community. But the school principal remains responsible. So even though you are appointed as the marketer of the school, you must report back to your school principal, as he must give feedback to the school governing body. If there's no policy in your school, it will be one of your tasks to advise the governing body and the school principal on policy documents, on marketing, on media, and maybe on finances. If you don't know how to do this, and you're a member of FEDSAS, please go to our website and you'll get a number of useful documentation for this task. Remember, though you are appointed to do the marketing, your school principal will remain the accounting officer to the governing body, and ultimately the governing body is responsible for the marketing and financial well-being of the school. Enjoy this course. You will fulfill a very important role within your school and your school community. You can make a huge difference in the lives of the learners. Enjoy this journey for the next 2 years and make a difference. Bye-bye.